Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Creator in Conversation, the official podcast of Tala Academy Sequential Art, TASQ Art, Ireland's premier academy of sequential art, design, and production. It is Ireland's very first dedicated comic book academy. This podcast, we've been fortunate to feature various guest speakers and lecturers and masterclasses. And today we have another great name joining us, Mr. John Layman. You may know John from his work on the Eisner-winning Chew. John today joins us to talk about his career, from how he got into comics, Star Wars being a gateway, all the way up to being an editor for WildStorm, and going on to become a professional full-time comic book writer himself. He has some really wonderful stories to share. It's very much a good laugh all the way along, and it's going to be short, entertaining to listen to as well. I want to thank also Malta Comic Con, who helped to make this possible by inviting both myself and John to their wonderful show, which took place last November, and myself and John were able to connect there. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this conversation with John Layman. So, John Layman, welcome and happy 2026 to you. Last time we were speaking, you were causing international incident at Malta Comic Con, and can't take you anywhere.
That was a good time.
That was brilliant, and you made it to Popeye Village. I was so happy because I was speaking with John as well, and he and his wife and yourself, you all made it down. I think the day after I'd left, it was it's a real experience, isn't it?
I mean, we had really low expectations, and it was really cool. Like, it was a fun time and like really cool pictures. It was a great day.
When you arrive at the ticket booth and it looks like it's like a desert, and you think, oh my God, what's this going to be? And then you walk down the path and turn the corner and you see the water. I remember was like crystal blue. It was gorgeous, and the sets it's. I can't recommend it enough. I'm going to become a tour ambassador for them. And so
what I really liked, I hadn't been to Malta. I went in 2019, and I don't feel like rideshare was the thing it is now. And the island's small enough, you could pop across the island in 25 minutes. So you call an Uber, cost you $20 or so, and you're to the other side of the island. It was a great way to spend the day.
Oh yeah, no, it's amazing. I've covered a lot of ground at it, but I haven't been to Gozo yet. Did you make it to Gozo?
Not this time. The time before.
Very good, very good. I think that's the last one. So that's the excuse I'm using to get invited back again. And have you got many shows lined up for 2026 at the moment, or is it early days for you?
No, not yet. I play things. I'm not a guy who schedules things out. And as I told you before off camera, we're looking to move from Phoenix to Portland this year. So kind of keeping things, I've got a couple invites to local-ish shows, within like a state or two. And like, I don't want to commit to, BozoCon if I'm suddenly like, 1,000 miles away and suddenly this is on my dime. And so I'm being real tentative right now until I know what my schedule is.
I get you. You should see if anyone in Portland will invite you to a show and get them to cover the shipping off your move while you're doing it.
That's a great idea.
So just, I suppose, what would be the origin story for yourself, John, if we start at the beginning, if a good place to begin, as they say? What was the origin, John Layman?
Old guy, so old that when Star Wars came out in 1977 and I'm, 10 years old, I was just obsessed with Star Wars. And, this is pre-VCR. This is press a button and have it at your fingertips. It left the theater. Star Wars was gone. And I dreamed about the day where I could watch Star Wars every day. Now I'm sick to death of Star Wars. But went to your corner 7-Eleven, and here's Star Wars number 8, by Roy Thomas and Howard Chaykin, and the further adventures of Luke Skywalker. And I realized, hey, I can get a monthly fix of Star Wars just by going into my corner convenience store, and plunking a quarter or still only 35 cents or whatever it was. And then, I'd go in on some week and, the new Star Wars wasn't out. Oh, what's this? ROM Space Night. Oh, Micronauts. Oh, event. Like, I started with kind of toys and licensed stuff, and then moved, to to superheroes. Then I'm reading X-Men and Titans and all that sort of stuff, and I just wanted to be in comics. Pre-internet, pre. They didn't have schools for for comics. So I became an English major because that's writing, and I wanted to write comics. And when I graduated from college, I moved to San Diego because I heard there was a big Comic Con there, which, by the standards of what it was in 1990, I parked, paid $5 and saw the entire show during my lunch hour. And, now it's cost thousands of dollars and there's hundreds of thousands, I watched it grow every year, but, got a job at WildStorm, as an assistant editor, had a newspaper column, a comics column in the newspaper, became an editor at WildStorm, and then suddenly DC bought us, and I was magically a DC editor. And about 5 years later, and about 200 edited books, I'm like, well, I don't want to be an editor. I want to be a writer. I've read a ton of good scripts. I've read a fair amount of bad scripts. I know people. I know how to do this. I'm going to make the jump to freelance. So that would have been around 2001-ish. And, you start small and you just hope every gig is bigger than the next or better than the next.
When you were with WildStorm, was that at the HQ at Malibu that they had? Or my...
Not Malibu, La Jolla.
La Jolla.
Malibu is La Jolla is the fancier part of San Diego. Malibu is LA. But yeah, we had we had offices in a bank building that overlooked the water, which I could only imagine what rent was. But these were the days where they they'd cancel a book when it got down to 35,000. Which, yeah. And it was coming. I wasn't there for the boom, but it was the tail end of the boom where, these 19-year-olds were getting brand new cars from their royalties, off Gen 13.2 or whatever.
Well, what a time. It was funny when you were mentioning comics pre-internet, because just Christmas past, my sister gave me a gift of, Tishin, they do the big reprints.
Oh, yeah, sure.
So I got this giant oversized Amazing Spider-Man, the first, I think it's Amazing Fantasy 15, then 1 to 19, and then the annual. And what it is, it's photographs of the original comics reproduced and blown up. So it's not re-edited, it basically is close to having an actual copy in front of you. And what I've read for the first time were the letter pages from the very first issues, the first 7 issues or so of Spider-Man. And what is incredible is, okay, so it was pre-internet, decades before. I always had in my mind fandom was such a quaint and innocent, but then you read the letter page and some of it is scathing. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah, they printed all kinds of stuff, back then, and it was weird. I remember one time you just grabbed letters and you printed them, and I printed a letter that it said a bunch of stuff, but one line said how he didn't like this or that writer. And that writer called me up and fucking chewed me a new one because he thought that I was I don't know, if I printed this letter, I must agree. What am I doing, bad-mouthing this guy? And it's like, dude, I barely read the letter. I just, it was on the pile and grabbed it and, did my little one-sentence reply. But, yeah, I kind of learned from that.
Yeah. I was like, any illusion I had is shattered. I'm like, we were always like this as fans. We were never happy. But
I wrote a letter to Micronauts that got published in 43, issue 43, and they reprinted the letters in the Marvel omnibuses.
Awesome.
And so I've got my letter in there. And what's weird is back in those days, they printed your full address. So, somebody could come to my house with a baseball bat and you don't like Micronauts, but I was just a kid, and I said some kind of asshole-ish things. I'm like, oh, get rid of this character. This sucks. And I'm like, well, that wasn't very diplomatic. And they printed it and had some kind of clever reply.
I think it was actually George R. R. Martin. His first published work was actually a fan letter in Fantastic Four.
Oh, what?
Saying in the 80s, yeah, because he's a huge comic book fan. I remember it was like on a documentary or something, and he was saying, yeah, and I think if you look at the reprints, you'll find it. So I don't know if he's at the same address, though, if anyone's gonna...
I would hope he's in a mansion by now. Or so. But I was reading the Micronauts one, and like I'm on like issue 3 letters page. It's like, oh shit, Kurt Busiek. You know, like you look around in the letters, and it's like you see some from Cat Ironwood, who was a Dark Horse editor at one point. Like you see names that, you know, come back in history.
Yeah, 100%. And from your editorial days, did you do much in the way of portfolio reviews, like reviewing, or was it more in you and the production side? And...
I did, but I hated it, and I always tried to get out of it. Like I've always told artists looking for portfolio reviews, you'll have a better luck talking to an artist, because an artist has the actual vocabulary. I can just be kind of like, you know, the generic stuff. Oh, you need to work on, anatomy. Oh, this is good. You know, work on your storytelling. But like, you want the down, and you go to editors for portfolio reviews to get a job. But if you really want to learn, talk to other artists. You know, they're the ones, you know, in the trenches getting their hands dirty, and they know exactly how to pick apart a page or a panel.
Yeah, no, it's funny. A friend of mine, Luca Passari, we were at New York Comic Con. So Luca's originally from Italy. He lives in Brazil now, I think. And we had met up because he was living at the UK. So we were in Ireland, and then we met up a few shows, became friends. And we found ourselves all at New York Comic Con one year. And Marvel would do a lot of portfolio reviews. He couldn't get a chance. So he went around to Artist Alley and he showed other artists. And the next thing, the son of a gun, he got a Marvel gig afterwards, because the artist, whoever it was he showed to an Artist Alley, said, this is good, introduced him to the editor that way.
Yeah.
And so it does pay. Sometimes people will go, I'll go to a convention, I want to meet this editor. It doesn't happen. But don't underestimate the networking at, you know, Artist Alley and going up to fellow artists and such.
Yeah,
you know,
for sure.
Stuff like that.
I also say don't go to conventions thinking you're going to get work. It's better to walk away with 5 friends than 1 job, because those 5 friends will, you know, either come up with you or help you down. You know, the guy who's just some kind of schlub next to you is editor-in-chief next day. I mean, that's the nature of comics. You never know who's going to end up where. So, you know, don't starfuck, you know, be cool to everybody.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's nice to be nice, and it does, like, people would prefer working with, you know, and someone who's decent and kind and, you know, professional than someone who could be really talented but it's a nightmare to work with. It's...
Well, have you heard the rule of 2, the 2 out of 3 rule? You either have to be good or fast or cool, and if you're 2 of those 3, you'll always get work in comics.
Awesome. They take that to the bank.
Yeah.
And when you transition over to being a writer then, because obviously it's a very difficult way to break into comics, but you kind of had that experience well in editorial, so you obviously had your own pool of connections and such. But was that intimidating for you to switch over to become like full-time writing then, having been in the editorial?
Oh, sure, for sure. You know, I you know, pulled in some favors. I did an image book, and I got variant covers from Frank Quietly, John Cassaday, and Sam Keith, which, you know, that's all because I was an editor and they were pals. And like Frank Quietly, I literally paid him in Twinkies because he had, you know, a little kid at the time who couldn't get Twinkies, you know, in Scotland. So I got a case of Twinkies and, you know, mailed him that, you know, in exchange for a cover. So, yeah, that's a pretty funny story.
Now Frank's going to get nothing but offers and Twinkies.
You know?
So that's awesome. And then when some of the IPs you've worked on as well, like you've done everything from like Batman and like, have you ever faced, this was a question I'd like to ask, obviously you would be a fan of some of these characters and IPs and then suddenly you're writing for them. Is there ever a moment of intimidation or fair blank page when you're like, okay, now you're in the driver's seat? Or does it feel something familiar because you've been reading the material you've grown up around?
Oh, the fear still hasn't gone away. You know, I get that every, you know, hundreds of books later, or how much I've ever read I don't get out of it. I don't, you know, there's still the imposter syndrome, the, you know, when are they going to figure out I'm a fraud? And then once in a while, I just have a week where I'm just hitting it out of the park, and I'm like, God damn, I'm a comic book writer. And I had that actually this week. This was a very good, productive week, and I'm feeling pretty good.
Oh, no, that's great. No, it's fantastic. And it's something I hear with particularly stand-up comedians where it's like there's an element of fear that they need when they go on stage. And it's like they think the moment I lose that fear, I think I'm missing something, you know? I don't know if it's the best way, but I do see a lot of creatives, a lot of artists seem to have that sense.
You know, when you're younger and hungrier, you take whatever you can. You know, you do whatever you can. Like, I didn't really care about Thundercats, and I kind of blundered into them. And in retrospect, maybe I wasn't as respectful enough to the property or the fans. And I've since learned, you know, I'm in a position to say no to things now. I wasn't 26 years ago. But you know, like an editor came to me recently. He's like, "Hey, do you want to write this licensed thing?" And I'm like, "But you know, I appreciate the work, I appreciate the offer, but I wouldn't do the best job. I'm not a fan of that. I don't give a damn, and I got to save myself for something I do, and hire someone who cares. You know, hire someone who's going to give it the most love." And you actually, I think, you earn an editor's respect when you say no to something that you're not the perfect fit for. They realize you're not just in it for the money. You know, there's a bit of integrity that goes along with it.
Absolutely, yeah, because that's always it's a worry. Because I know I've experienced that in my own career, where you say, if I say no this time, will the opportunity swing back around? Sometimes,
yeah, like, oh, am I? Did I just say no to paying my rent this month? You know,
I always like sharing, because we do the Popeye strips here with King Features, and like we don't do original, we just reprint on the license, but you still get a chance. But originally, years before, I had an opportunity. I think it was when Popeyes turned 80 or something, but it just wasn't the time. So we kind of let it slip by. And then I was like, that's probably won't get a chance to see Popeye again. It was actually last year when I went to Popeye's Village the first time I Malta that we ended up getting it then. So I was like, yeah, sometimes you just got to wait.
Yeah.
Wait it out, you know, but the fear's always on you for sure. But you've also had experiences with licensed IPs and, of course, your own creator-owned, like Chew and everything. So what's the big, like, which do you prefer? Do you have a preference, like writing for IPs or your own work, or is it?
No, in some ways it's a little bit of a different part of your brain, and then on the other hand, you're when you're working for an IP, you know, a license, whether it's Batman or, you know, Popeye or you know, whatever, you know, you've got an editor who's giving you a page rate, which is always nice. But, you know, they're kind of making sure that you're not doing, you know, well, you shouldn't do anything that's not true to the character anyways. But you've got someone, you know, a guardian angel over your shoulder, and it's good in DC because I'll you know, hey, I've got a scene with Hawkman. They're like, well, you know, Hawkman's over here this week. Better use this character because, you know, I can't keep track of everything that's happening at DC, let alone what's happening 4 months from now in books I haven't read. So, you know, when you're doing creator own, I always say, you know, you're God. You can do whatever you want. If you want to absolutely play God, create your own stuff because no one can stop you, even if you do something really stupid. But, you know, Batman, you know, he's not going to kill a bunch of school children, you know, and, you know, nor should he. But if you write that scene, an editor's going to be like, you know, whoa, you know, nope. So, you know, that goes back to being true to the character and, you know, caring enough about the character to be true to it.
And with you, obviously, huge success. And what was your, you know, intent when doing it yourself? Was this something that you thought, here's a story, it's something you were very passionate about, you wanted to get it out there?
Oh, yeah.
You know, what happens? Did you think this is going to blow up the way?
Oh, never. In fact, I had been pitching it for a few years, and every time there was a new Vertigo editor, I thought it would be a good Vertigo book. And at the time, I needed a page rate. Like, I could not pay for this thing. And what happened was I blundered into a kind of a long-term temporary video game job. And I was suddenly making great money. But as soon as the video game ended, you know, the gravy, they basically said, you know, we're going to let half the staff go, including the writer. Who needs a writer for a game that's already come out? So I had a clock ticking, but I was making great money. And I'm thinking, you know what? Nobody wants my stupid bird flu cannibal book, but I believe in it. I think it's funny. I'm going to lose money on this thing, but I'm going to finance it, and I'm going to show it to editors. Hey, here's this book. A few people liked it. It was a cult hit. Give me work. So that was the only expectation for Chew. And then it just came out at the right time and, inexplicably blew up. And it took about till like issue 4 where I'm like, oh, this is real. This isn't, this has legs. What do I want to do? And all my favorite books when I look around, like Scalped or Preacher or Why the Last Man, everything seems to be 60 issues. That seems to be like the sweet spot to tell a novel-length story. I think Bone was around there, but it, doesn't go up its own ass in pretentiousness like arguably Sandman did at different points. But like, we're like, look, we have the sales. I think we can get to 60. You make a mini that has an ending, so it's satisfying if it ends at 5, but still, has enough story seeds that it can go on. And I had the whole thing mapped out, and very early on I said, we're going to go 60, and we did.
When you're saying mapped out as well, do you have a particular process to each time you start a script? It's something I'm always curious, because I like obviously teaching, we can't teach students ideas. It's kind of like a spark, but we can kind of give them exercises to how to not be intimidated by the blank page. You have like spider diagrams, or you might do like a rough outline or dictate.
No, I'm terrible in that I don't do, like, I sit here for weeks staring at my desk, and my wife's just like, you're just watching videos, you're just watching TikTok or whatever. It's like, no, I'm thinking. And then it reaches a point where it just kind of like explodes out of me. And I will literally have like pages and scenes and stuff in my head, but I usually don't commit it to paper until it's ready. And I'm not a guy who does a bunch of drafts. Like usually it's been ruminating. And at this point, I'm so late and so panicky. I'm just like, it all comes out when it has to. And it's a terrible process. I don't recommend it. But yeah, I'm the guy who sits on it in my head, torturing myself until it's ready, and then I get it to a page, and usually most of the time it's fully formed. That being said, the ex-editor in me, if there's, if the enemy to getting things done is like trying to make it perfect and just noodling, but if it feels good enough, you move forward. But if there's something in the back of your head, if there is something wrong, I gotta fix it. Doesn't happen often, but every once in a while it's like, nope, it's not ready. That I gotta rewrite this scene or page. I may have to throw the whole goddamn thing out and start over again, but it's not. I know when it's not ready, and when it is, I don't look backwards.
But it's good that you're able to, you have that capacity in yourself to make that call, because sometimes, as you're saying, it's not what you do all the time. And I think sometimes people, anyone who's like art-based creative, the search for perfection is endless. So like they never get around to actually submitting or just letting go. But it's great that you kind of know, okay, this on this occasion, yes, but you're not doing it all the time.
Yeah. And something that was also, it took me a few years. It took me many years to get to this, and I'm really proud that I did. Like, I'll get a page from an artist, and maybe it's not exactly what I asked for, and I'll give you an extreme circumstance. When I was an editor, I was working with this like youngish writer who had visions of being Grant Morrison. But I would get pages from him, and he'd be like, my guy he's a real like left brain thinker. He's very creative. He's not good with fact. I think he'd be left-handed, and his watch would be on his left hand. Could we get a correction? And I'm just thinking, okay, you're overthinking this, and what you're gonna do with these little penny ante corrections is you're gonna demoralize your artist. And really, before I ask for a change, I'm like, will changing this make it for a better reading experience for even a single reader? Is anyone going to give a shit other than me? And if the answer is no, or if the answer is 99%, if like most people are not, don't bother the artist with them. Keep the artist happy and moving and productive. And like like a good example of this is the last page of Chew. I said, Rob, this is what I want, do this. And he did it, but he did it in a completely different way that was in my head. And I don't wanted to change. It was the last page, but then I'm like, this is his book as well. Just because he didn't do what was in my head, I should have explained it better, because he gave me everything I asked for. He is my partner. I'm going to let it go. And, I have this story, but wish we would have changed that page. Like you let go. It didn't matter. Everyone was happy.
At the end of the day, it's a collaboration, isn't it?
Yeah. And you got to remember this: your artist is not your slave or your servant. It's your partner, and you keep your partner happy. You're going to get your best from them.
But obviously, now we're talking across oceans, different countries, thanks to like Zoom and stuff. Is there any preference that you have now when working with your fellow collaborators? Like, is it easy now just to like FaceTime someone, instant messenger?
For sure. And also, but another thing to like working with people is every artist is different. Like some people want that attaboy every freaking page. They want a bunch of feedback. They want to talk. They want to throw their ideas. Some people want a script and, hey, I'll see you in 30 days. Leave me alone. I'll call you if you got any questions. So you really got to kind of figure out what your artist wants and what's the ideal, circumstance for that. A good thing when you get a new like Batman book or whatever, you go into the artist, hey, what don't you want to draw? What do you hate? 90% of the time it's horses. And what do you want to draw? When I worked on Batman, I figured out very quickly that Jason Fabok wanted toys. Like he wanted a new Batcopter, he wanted a new Batmobile, he wanted to as long as I gave him a different freaking toy to play with every issue, he was happy and he did great work.
That's awesome. And coming up in the industry, did you have any standout mentors along the way, or did you meet any of your heroes from when you would have been reading, being a reader yourself in comics, and you had a pinch me, I can't believe I'm working with this person moment?
Well, yes. I mean, I've had, it's weird because I've been on the phone with Alan Moore and Neil Gaiman, met a lot of the greats, but the only time I can remember being straight out tongue tied is I ended up at a meal with Dave Gibbons, and I was just that I couldn't have been a nicer, more regular guy, but just something about, where I was in my life when Watchmen hit, to be sitting next to this guy, was just too much. And, it's nice when you end up, friends with somebody who's like Sam Keith and I, we were great friends, and we would call, and, no such thing as a short conversation with Sam. We would talk for 3 hours. And then the worst part is I knew he was drawing the whole time. And, as a writer, it's like, you just ate up half my day, you bastard. But it's really nice. I mean, to both work with, somebody that you grew up loving, but also becoming their friend, realizing that they're more than just a great artist. These are good people.
No, awesome. Have you got a chance to check out Confabulation, the biography, Dave Gibbons' autobiography?
Oh, no, I have not.
Check it out. And if you can, check out, Dave actually recorded the audiobook of it on audio.
Oh, what?
And it's great because he's still, you hear Dave Gibbons do his German accent, his Spanish accent, his Glaswegian accent. But it's really, really interesting because we had him on a few episodes back, and he's a gent, and he came in, spoke to students, and I was aware of the autobiography, hadn't got around to it yet, but I said I'll get around to it, and I checked out the audio version, and it's some stories in it, man. So 100% if you get the chance.
Oh, yeah. I have no doubt.
Confabulation. And at the moment, is there any upcoming projects that you have happening now? Anything that you can talk about? Or is everything NDA'd up to the hilt?
Well, so I don't know if this happened when I was in Malta, but I got pulled off of Titans, which sucks. And I also got pulled off of The Scorched, which were my 2 monthly gigs. And nothing against me as far as I know, but like 23 issues of The Scorched, 17 issue of Titans, they got to rearrange the deck chairs every once in a while. They have to be like, oh, new jumping on point, new creative team, new roster. So that I think my big thing that's announced right now is a Rocketeer book.
Awesome.
Using an old kind of the skeleton of a story from Dave Stevens, and they're actually like repurposing art. So I'm getting some Dave Stevens covers, which is pretty cool. But this guy named Jacob Edgar, who's got this really sort of Darwin Cook kind of Bruce Timm kind of like very kind of simple retro. I mean, he's not trying to do Dave Stevens, which nobody could. And then it hasn't been revealed, but there are some surprises, and there are some surprise guest stars in this Rocketeer thing. Part of it was Dave Stevens had this idea where we were going to meet this analog, but that since he passed, in 2009 or whatever it was, that character has gone public domain, so we get to actually use the character. But they're keeping it quiet for now to, like, I guess, surprise people when it comes out. But I'm writing this really crazy crossover with Rocketeer, and it's going to be a blast.
That's amazing. Now, were you a fan of the Rocketeer franchise?
Oh yeah,
yeah, big fan, yeah.
And even more than that, Dave Stevens' art, like, it was really, I was young enough that I was just realizing that, oh, hey, artists have different styles. Like, there's a point where, comic books are all the same, and then I think it was Michael Golden the first time I realized, like, oh wait, this guy doesn't look like everyone else. And, artists don't look like, once you figure that out, man, you can figure out, who to love most.
It's awesome, man. And are you still collecting yourself? Like, do you have like a pull? Are you more of a trade guy now, or whatever?
I'm definitely a trade guy. I'm not a collector in any means, but you give me the biggest, most expensive, slip-covered, leather-bound hardcover, and I will just roll all over myself to buy a book for the 5th time, in the most premium edition I possibly can.
I think it was when we were in Malta, we went for a wander, and we must have found, not a comic shop, seemed to be like a small manga shop. It was this, we just found it, had the massive Superman book, and I was just looking at it going, that'll cost me if I put that in a suitcase.
Oh, yeah.
Well, yeah, no, the hardback, the quality of printing's astonishing now that we're able to achieve. Obviously with the fine binding and like the omnibuses now and everything.
Oh, yeah. I mean, those Taschen books you were talking about, I have some over here. I got a little Nemo that's, this big, and then a Crazy Cat that's even bigger. I mean, it's like they put the artist editions to shame. They're so big.
When walking on shoe or collecting like editions, so they say it's gone back to reprint, is there anything that you do you have any say or sway in the like production of the book, the printing itself?
Oh yeah, Image is real good about that. They'll tell you, hey, what paper you want. They'll send you like binding specs and all that. But like once we sort of got it down to a science, once we got the hardcover, the absolute, we're just like, okay, just do it like that. And even going forward on trades, I'm just like, I want it just like the first 2 trade. Use the same cover stock, use the same interior stock. It's just like, I know it and it works for me. But that being said, if you're going through Image and like, I want a weird like 8.5 by 12 3/4 like weird size, and I want foil and all this, if you've got the money and you're willing to pay the production costs, the Image will let you do whatever you want.
It's great. And
at least you have the opportunity. They may argue that, talk you out of it because you're being crazy.
I can imagine onto that one. And when working like with a credit on Image, like, do you still have a chance to like appoint your own editor? Or
you could. I mean, I'm inherently cheap. And, Rob Guillory did the coloring and all the art, and then I did the lettering and all the like design and production. So when it came to cut a check, we just split that in half. So it's the less people, the less money you have to do. So if I can ever be in a 2-man band, and I wish I could draw because I could cut a lot of crazy artists out, but like it's the best case scenario. And I also say, as a writer who can't draw, like lettering is a really good way to bring your words across really evocatively and control the page in a way that you can't if someone else is lettering. And I could technically edit as well and like rewrite on the fly, but I tend to, the letterer and the writer are two different people. And by the time I'm lettering, I'm not like, I'm not, rewriting, it's the writer has moved on. Now it's the letterer's domain, but I really enjoy lettering. It's a different, like side of your head. And, when you're a comic book letterer, you are lettering as fast as you can while doing quality work because you earn a page rate. But if I'm lettering Chew, which is mine, I can sit on my couch in the evening watching a TV show and spend an hour on a sound effect, which isn't cost effective in any way, but it's your own book. You're going to have it forever. Couldn't do it if someone was paying me. I'd go broke. But I love the luxury of really being able to fool around and really fine tune and have fun with my own lettering.
Yeah, it's so funny. Literally today, I had, we're outside of term, but I had a couple of students come in collect some Bristol board for their semester 1 projects, and one of them is leaning more towards writing illustration, completely understandable. But I was just saying to him in second semester, we're looking at lettering and how that would be, because I was using Robert Kirkman as an example, because he did a lot of his own lettering early on, and I was just saying the exact same. If you can, just to have that contribution onto the page, cut out some of the middleman stuff, particularly if they're doing indie stuff. Yeah,
it's also really educational, because especially like prose writers, when prose writers come over to comics, like they tend to just put way too many words on a page and cover the art, and like you really, when you letter yourself, you kind of figure out how many balloons can go on a page or a panel before I'm ruining people's enjoyment by just making, write a freaking novel. If it's a marriage of art and words, and the art is worth 1,000 words. So, you'll never learn that quicker than lettering your own stuff.
100%. And how did yourself and Rob meet then? So, like, did you guys know each other before Chew, or was it when you were working?
No, I had this video game job, and I was determined to. This is actually funny because I'd been pitching, Vertigo every time there was a new Vertigo editor, but I never pitched Image. Like, they were my ace in the hole, and at that point I had been in comics for 7 years. Eric Stevenson and I were friendly, and I just called Eric one day and said, "Look, man, I got this Cannibal Bird Flu, comedy book. I'm looking for an artist. I have money. Like, do you recommend anybody?" And he didn't have anybody, but it's like, "Hey, I really like this idea. Find somebody, who doesn't suck that I would approve, and we'll do the book." So I had an automatic green light, which that was fantastic. But I was also able to play the bad guy with, in this case, Rob. Like, look, I've got this approved, but if Eric says no to you, I'm going to find someone he says yes to. So, I didn't have to be the bad guy, which is good as a coward. So I was going to my various friends and being like, "Look, I've got a budget. I've saved up my video game money. I'm going to pay an artist every issue for this." And, of course, people are recommending their friend, and it's like, this isn't quite the artist you want, but he's a really good guy. And it's like, okay, well, but I want the artist I want. So it took a while, but someone's like, "Check out this Rob Guillory guy." And we met, like, I basically arranged, like, "Hey, I'm going to be at the Hyatt bar on Friday night. Let's talk a bit." And turns out I was drunk enough. I told him the whole ending the first time we met. And I told him I'd been pitching, Vertigo. And so we did some sample pages, and they were really kind of like Guy Davis, kind of like, scratchy and vertigo-y, and, nothing against Guy Davis. I mean, fantastic, but like I wanted something kind of goofier for Chew. Like I wanted you to laugh at him eating a toe, not like be horrified. And so I'm like, I told Rob, like he gave me this art. I'm like, ooh, this is not the guy. I gotta cut this guy loose. And I'm like, I don't understand. Like I'm looking at your webpage and you got this like cartoony shit over here. Why didn't you draw it like that? Like, what is this? And he's like, well, that's my style. But no one ever asked me to draw in my style. They always tell me to draw in a Vertigo style, or, try to do Mignola, or try to do, Rob Liefeld, or no one had ever said, be yourself. And I'm like, dude, that's exactly what I want. And of course it was very freeing for him, to tell him to, be himself and not try to ape somebody else. And it really, he just flowered after that.
No, awesome. No, it's brilliant. And when it came to the, obviously, big success, about critical as well, like with the Eisner Awards and everything, that's like the highest that you can get within the industry. How was that like? What was that experience like for you to, room for your peers?
The whole thing was really surreal. I had never gone to a foreign show before, and we were the debut book from an Italian company called Bow, and they flew us out, and we were actually in Italy when Joe Keating called and said we were nominated. And then it got even weirder because during like a week or two before the show, and this tells me the fix was in. They already knew we were going to win, but we got picked to have a documentary crew tail us for this Morgan Spurlock Comic Con. He was going to follow like 15 people and then like take like the best 4 and make them into a movie. But we had a documentary crew, which, I'm sure this happens everywhere. At first, you're very guarded, and then by the end, you're talking shit about your in-laws and smoking weed on a camera and all this stuff you should not do. But there was a point where when we won the Eisner, like they were kind of egging us. Like I'm a pretty, I'm not going to gush. I'm not going to, cry or give the kind of histrionics they want in reality TV, and Rob's even more laid back. So when we won, the camera people are like, hey, aren't you excited? Let's see you excited. And I'm like, well, this is me excited. I'm not going to, make a jackass out of myself. And like, I think we were, they wanted more reality TV drama. So we were on the cutting room floor. We didn't make the actual movie if it even came out, but like the whole situation was just completely weird. And in a I had been doing cons and happy if I walked away from a day show with $50 to buy pints for my mates, and here I was like winning the Eisner and having like lines around the block, and it was weird. But unless you're Mike Mignola or Jim Lee, don't get used to it, because 10 years ago at this point, and I either wasn't ambitious or talented enough to sort of like keep the like Scott Snyder just keeps the hits coming. I was I saw the limits of my ambition too. Like I was happy I got Chew. I don't need to write 9 flagship big 2 books or whatever.
Sometimes it's like the cherry on top, and then it's like, but then to be content and happy and fulfilled in your work, like everyone has their own, like everyone says, I want to be successful, I want this, and like the definition's completely different to another. For me, it's like if I'm getting paid to do what I do and I can pay my rent, I'm like, I consider myself very successful, and that's all I ever need, So, but it's it's lovely to hear. And did you ever have the chance to meet Will Eisner at all?
Yes and no. Like in my first year at San Diego Con was around 1995, 1990. No. 1991 was my first year at San Diego, and I actually walked around. I think early on with WildStorm, maybe I was with Scott Doonbeer, maybe I was with Jim Lee, and Jack Kirby, Will Eisner, and Stan were just walking together, and they stopped and they either said hi to Dune Beer or maybe it was Jim, whoever I was with. I can't really remember, but I'm this little 23-year-old just kind of like hovering in the back, and I got an autograph in my autograph book with a little tiny like a spirit mask or whatever, but it wasn't a legitimate interaction. It was just me standing there, but I got to see him. That's more than more people can say.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm friends with Alex Saviak, and he was saying to me that he actually, like, obviously it wasn't planned, but he ended up drawing the last Will Eisner story because they were doing, The Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay. They had The Escapist, and they made the fictional comic with Dark Horse into a comic.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, and then Eisner did a short story, but he only did the breakdowns. He had to go on for heart surgery. So Alex went in then, did the finishes and all, and Will loved it, sent them a note, said, "Thank you so much, look forward to working again." But then, fortunately, that's when he suddenly passed then, shortly thereafter. I think he was after the surgery, he was on golf course or something. But it was just surreal for Alex because he had, worked in Eisner studios before, and it's crazy. He'd have stories like, if there was a flood in the leak in the studio, they'd be using like old art pages, to cover up, like, oh my God. Yeah.
Well, I admit I got spoiled because, back in those early days of Comic-Con, Will Eisner could walk through it wasn't, someone, he would get mobbed now or anyone of that, but it was more casual and accessible. And, I saw Stan Lee 1,000 times, and I just assumed Stan would be around forever. And, there's a lot of people I interacted with knowing we'd always get next time. And then like John Cassaday, yeah, he was one of my best friends. And, we kind of we talked less during COVID just because we were the type of friends that we could always pick up right where we left off. It didn't matter because there'd always be next time until there isn't, So coming out of COVID, I got a lot more like again, Cassaday, we had 1,000 adventures together, but this was pre-cell phone. I don't have a single picture with me and, what was one of my best friends. So I came out of COVID really like, oh, hey, I barely know you. Let's get some pictures. I want to commemorate everything now.
Yeah, that's it. It's no saying like time is the only currency we ever spend without knowing the balance,
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, it's been awesome. And then, obviously, like, comics so collaborative, you've had the opportunity then to, reach out and work with so many. And obviously, you still, like, when you go to, like, shows or if you're searching online, are you constantly on the outlook as well for, like, new collaborators, or is that just comes with the project?
So much. I'm pretty, I'm not, I've never been very prolific. And I've been really lucky that, like, whenever I get a creator-owned gig, whenever I get a work-for-hire gig, they usually have an artist in mind. If I have any say, I'll be like, hey, call John McRae, call somebody I'm buddies with or want to work with. But I really only think I've been saddled with a couple shitty people over 26 years or whatever. So like I didn't know who this Jacob Edgar guy was that I'm doing Rocketeer with, and I'm coming away with a new friend and a new guy that I can't wait to work with again. So I'm kind of happy to be set up because most of the time it's a positive experience. And man, looking for creator own, like it's tough. You gotta find somebody who's right for the gig, temperamentally, right for you. You got to work with this person, and then you got to worry about all the business stuff and ownership and money. And I hate it, so I only really want to do 1-2 creator owned things at a time because it's so much more work as a dumb comic book guy who's not a business guy and doesn't want to be a business guy. You can't separate the business shit from the creative stuff, and I hate it. So that's a part of work for hire you don't have to worry about.
Yeah, no, that's true. And John, this has been fantastic. Like, thanks so much for taking the time. Thanks for sharing
Anytime.
insights and stories. Really appreciate catching up. If folks want to follow anything like how you're doing, are you on any social media channels?
I'm on Blue Sky as the Mighty Layman, and I try to make it not that comic centric. Like the people who just bang their drum every half hour, like these are the people I end up muting. So a lot of cat pictures, a lot of K-pop, news of the music I'm listening to. Enough comic book talk that you know what I'm up to without me bludgeoning you over the head with nonstop comic book shit. So yeah, Blue Sky, the Mighty Layman.
Awesome. Thanks so much, John. Hopefully you have a chance to catch up again, either online or in person in the future.
Yeah, anytime you want me back, happy to do it. And hopefully our paths will cross, sometime in the next year.
Awesome. Brilliant. Thanks so much. My thanks again to John for taking the time to speak with me, and he was the very first conversation we recorded in 2026. And be sure to keep an eye out for his upcoming Rocketeer comic, which he teased, and it seems to be more to be revealed regarding that particular story as well. And as John mentioned, if you want to follow him online, he has a Blue Sky account which you can follow him on. And if you would like to know more about the Academy and follow us and lend us your support or share this with any of your friends, family, or anyone you think would be interested, please find us online under the handle at TASQart. That's at TASQART. Our website's TASQart, TASQART.com. And you can also email us at info@tasqart.com as well. Until next time, this has been a copyright production of Macaulay Consultancy 2026.